Well, thank you all for being here and sitting through my speech. And here's my audience. Including the recorder. Okay, are you worried that too much screen time is diminishing your child's intelligence? New research suggests that you might be right. In a new groundbreaking study published in Preventative Medicine Reports suggests that more than 1 hour per day of screen time for children ages 2 to 17 is associated with lower psychological well-being. Kids that spend less than 2 hours a day in front of screens, combined with 9 to 11 hours of sleep and at least an hour of physical activity, have the sharpest intellects. Sadly, very few US children meet all three of these daily goals. Now, many of you know I have 3 young daughters, and I'm already seeing how difficult it is to limit screen time for them. Today I'm going to tell you why, about the dangers of excessive screen time, and those dangers aren't just psychological, but they're physical as well. I'm also here to persuade you to monitor not only your children's screen time, but your own as well. Let's start with talking about the different types of screen time. The definition of screen time refers to the amount of time a person spends staring at the digital displays of computers, tablets, and smartphones. Now, 2 decades ago, families had few electronic screens in the home. Maybe a television and maybe a computer with dial-up internet. There are some types of screen time that are better than others. Now, there's a huge difference between an hour spent shooting zombies and dragons and an hour spent learning vocabulary from a smartphone app. That doesn't mean that everything claimed to be educational is going to provide an enriching experience. Recently, my husband installed YouTube for Kids on my daughter's tablet. She was so excited, and we set it up so she can only watch those educational shows, not the toy reviews that get her all riled up. After the first day of monitoring what she was watching, I noticed that not everything on there was educational. Most of it was junk. And when I say junk, I mean toy reviews, weird homemade videos made by kids, and really just stuff that wasn't helping her gain any knowledge whatsoever. Now, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of mindless entertainment, but there is a limit we should all keep in mind for ourselves and our children. Our children, they learn by example. If they see us in front of computer screens and our television and have our smartphones out, they will think that's what they should be doing. If it's so important to us, it should be important to them too, right? I'm sure that, like me, you want a good relationship with your children that will last forever. That is why it is so important to take time to explore together, whether it's on media or in the real world. Common Sense Media recently shared the 4 C's: connection, critical thinking, creativity, and context. So connection, it's really important for kids to connect on a personal level with what they're watching, playing, or reading. Are they engaged, engrossed, maybe even a little bit enlightened? Getting into a storyline or identifying with characters primes kids for more learning. Critical thinking media. So critical thinking, media that takes a deeper dive into a topic, subject, or skill, and it helps kids find extensive meaning. Creativity, it's so important for kids to create and learn how to create. They'll feel more ownership of their own learning when they have control over the experience. Context, being present and helping our kids understand how their media fits into the larger world is so important. With my kids, it helps when I discuss the activities surrounding the movies or games. It helps extend their learning, and it helps our relationship grow as well. Now, Mayo Clinic has some great tips for parents on how to guide our children through this technological age we live in. They stated that by age 2, children can benefit from certain types of screen time, such as programming with music, movement, and stories. However, passive screen time shouldn't replace reading, playing, or problem solving. This leads to my next point, that screen time can make your child and yourself chronically ill. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that children have no more than 2 hours of non-school related screen time per weekday. Recent research on children and television reveals that children are watching more television than ever. In November 2013, Nickelodeon reported that children born after 2005, aged 8 and under, were watching an average of 35 hours of television per week. That's like a full-time job. This means that children are spending on average at least 5 hours in front of screens each day, 3 hours more per day than the AAP recommends. As kids grow, their screen time grows with them, and even very young children these days are spending a significant amount of time each day staring at screens. The Vision Council says 30% of parents report their child experience at least one of the following symptoms after being exposed to more than 2 hours of screen time per day. Now think about this for you as yourself and your children as I list them off. Headaches, neck and shoulder pain, eye strain, dry or irritated eyes, reduced attention span, poor behavior, and irritability in general. Any of these symptoms could potentially affect academic performances and social interactions. Eye strain is just one of the risks with too much screen time. Huffington Post shared some more risks that many wouldn't even think about. Cyber sickness, also called digital motion sickness. Symptoms range from headaches to woozy feelings caused by playing or watching action-packed games, or scrolling too quickly on your smartphone. Now, many of you have heard of this one. Text claw is the unofficial term for soreness and cramping felt in fingers, wrists, and forearm after heavy smartphone use. Overeating is another risk with screen time. Have you noticed how hungry you get when watching a cooking show? Kids and people in general don't listen to their bodies when they're watching something and eating something at the same time. They are too distracted to listen to those body cues telling them that they're full. We should all self-reflect on how we ourselves are spending our time. Do we spend most of our time holding our smartphones? Is our television always on? Like I mentioned, our children learn from us. They look up to us and they do what we do. If we limit our screen time, our children might just do the same. We can also put a limit on our children's screen time. We can use screen time as a reward so that it's something they're earning throughout the day for good behavior. Your kids are going to watch screens one way or another. You're probably going to feel a little guilty about it, and that's okay. But set your limits. Is it 1 hour after dinner, 2 in the morning on the weekends? No screens 2 hours before bedtime? Everyone's needs may differ, but set your limits and never ever exceed them. Consistency is key. Some other questions we can ask ourselves are, when was the last time you went on a family walk instead of watching that family-friendly movie? Is this movie or app helping my children learn? Will they take something positive away from this? The best way to help kids manage screen time is to be aware and to communicate with them. Screen time research has been historically inconsistent. However, the most important results of research show that the associations discovered between screen time and well-being is what parents should be concerned about. There are a ton of statistics out there having different time limits and requirements. If we want what's best for our children, we will help them by monitoring their screen time and ours as well. Be a proactive parent. Spend more quality time together and less screen time with your children left to their own devices. And that's it.